Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Andy and I are dressed in purple and black today, obviously in support of the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be a great podcast.
Black hole sun.
Divisional. You're supporting California too. I like that. California could use your support, guys. Although I'll be honest with you, things are much better around here. So appreciate everyone who's reached out to just say, hey, everything cool? Yes, everything's cool.
They did a bunch of stuff on the TGL last night too. One of the indoor golf thing.
Yeah,
the LA team played, and they did some stuff for that too. Serena was there. Serena's boyfriend owns the team.
Wow.
Well, I forget who he works for. Like, he owns something.
He's Reddit guy, right?
Is it Reddit guy?
He's the Reddit guy, yeah. I believe.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best not to get distracted by tennis when that comes on. The Australian Open is ripping right now, and I fucking love it. I'm going to try to focus, and I think the theme of today's pod is really going to be trying to solve some of this stuff because we don't really have the answers today. When I looked at the board for wildcard weekend, I felt like I had the answer key, but
I kind of did.
This one,
I know, those just click. Isn't it so funny? Some weeks where it's just like, well, this is what probably happens here. Like,
this week I'm like second guessing myself. It was like, was that just the perfect storm? Was it the matchup? Like, is this team overrated now? Like, did I miss it? Like, am I getting results based here and believing that there's something there, right? Like, so I'm doing a lot of second guessing.
And you've got rematches. So we've got some rematches, some games, but some of these games are from like week 4. I mean, we were different men then. We were tall.
We were different men, man.
It was. I mean, this is ages ago at this point. I mean, thinking about just like Baltimore. I believe it was week 4 for Baltimore Buffalo. Like that was a drubbing. And if you want to give it to their credit, Baltimore kind of was still a bad pass defense at that point.
Of course, yeah.
It was kind of an odd game. The Eagles and Rams definitely played.
Yeah, that one was a primetime game, which
that was all they knew. This is going to be a playoff matchup.
Was that like around Thanksgiving? Is that why I just am like blanking on that?
Washington and
celebrating.
How many times has the Washington team in other iterations and the Detroit Lions played each other in the playoffs?
This is number 4.
They played a bunch. I've seen there was an article
a playoff rivalry, Andy.
Yeah, this is funny.
The article
is like listing out they're all the 80s.
Little lopsided. This is a little bit of a lopsided rivalry as the Redskins got all 3, and I believe they were all convincingly. I remember very vividly the NFC Championship game in 1982, which was the 91 season, which was ultimately the Redskins were crowned their 3rd Super Bowl champion. I was in elementary school at the time, and those guys were gods in our classroom. Darryl Green and Charles Mann, Mark Rippon and the posse, Ernest Biner, and there was another running back who I'm forgetting. But that whole team they were gods in DC in the 90s, and that was an amazing squad in general. They beat the absolute brakes off the Lions in that title game.
Oh, yeah, it was like 41-10. Yeah. There was a lot of NFC title games at that time where there were some blowouts. There were some good ones as well, obviously.
Yeah, to answer the important question from Joshua here, did I get a fresh cut? I did not.
You had to. It looks shorter.
It's not. It's flatter, I think, because the air is like the driest and weirdest it's been in a long time. We're having some weird weather, and
right,
so I don't have the normal bounce and volume from my hair today.
Was it Lil Kim? Did you see the tweet? From Lil Kim?
No.
It was like prayer hands emoji. Like, I'm so sorry about what's happening in LA and all the fires. She's like, I pray that a monsoon comes. When she's assuming that would put the fire out. I don't think she knows what a monsoon is. It's like, no,
we do not need one of those. Oh no,
that's like when Godzilla's attacking the city and King Kong comes. Like, It doesn't make it better. It's just more buildings are going to get
No,
built.
it's like in Sim City back in the day when we were in elementary school and you got to do the disaster. You get riots, aliens, fire.
It'd always be like, oh, weird, the tornado hit my nuclear power plant again.
Weird.
No, radioaction.
Weird.
Yeah. We should leave that game for a second, but I do have another trivia for that one.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear it. All right, let's talk about the first game first then. You ready to dive into the Texans, the Texans game as the Saturday early kickoff has come to be known. The Houston Texans, fresh off a resounding victory as dogs, go on the road to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they are catching currently 8.5 to 9.5 points. We'll call it 8
or 9, yeah.
Circa has an 8. I like that Circa isn't leaning with me, that this should be closer to 7. If you want the best number on the Chiefs, go to Vegas. If you want the best number on the Texans, I guess you're better off offshore. For some reason, the Caribbean wants Texans money and Vegas wants Kansas City money, but go figure. Interesting to me, a number of things about this matchup. I've been trying not to get too enthusiastic about the win over the Chargers. Yeah, it's the defense that played up. They played their best game of the season. They made their playmakers on that defense all made plays. Everybody made a play. The interceptions were a high degree of difficulty. They required some contributions from the receivers for the Chargers, and the sacks were against a decent offensive line. The pressures were against a decent offensive line, and it felt like Greg Roman didn't really have his best. He didn't have his A game in terms of what he was calling offensively, on top of the fact that the Texans defense played with their hair on fire. And the big question is, can you take that on the road now and do it against a team that's rested and that has the best quarterback of this generation?
And a better defense. This was the surprising thing. So leaving that game, my angle was Houston's defense is good, maybe great. And I think it's a close, low-scoring game. But I was terrified to back the Houston offense. So I said, what I really like is the Chargers team total under. And you get that confirmation bias from winning a bet. Like, hey, I was right. That defense was really good, which was right. But I was also wrong. The offense, and I guess watching it back, it still felt like the offense wasn't super effective. But at the same time, they had 429 yards of offense. And Stroud threw for 282. Those are good games by their measure, especially for how they've played the last, 6 weeks or so. So I guess I'm not quite sure where I stand, if some of that was just game state and, Chargers maybe having to sell out a little more to try to create some chaos. And they were getting some longer runs from Mixon in the second half. Mixon coming into the week banged up. He's on the injury report today with an ankle suddenly, which isn't great against a good run defense.
Yeah, so if he's part of the game plan, I'm going to be pissed. If he's heavily featured, I'm going to be angry.
Well, but at the same time, this is, like you said, a rested Chiefs team who also has, Jalen Watson ready to go. Chris Jones is 100%, not 100%, but sounds like he's just fine to go. So this defense is going to be a little more stacked in the secondary. It's going to be fully healthy up front. It's a good defense, maybe not as good as Houston. This total is reflecting both the respect for both of them. It's down to 41 now, which probably is about enough. I don't know if it goes much lower than that. So I'm struggling because my raw numbers say like Kansas City 8.5.
Wow, really? Ooh.
I didn't think I'd have it that big. I really thought when I plugged it in, I had a lot of respect for Houston.
Just do me a quick favor, because I know you keep track of your numbers over the balance of the season, so you got a good arc. If we were playing this game week 1, and obviously the rest differential matters, but let's just say from a neutral rest standpoint, what would the number be for you?
All right, I'm going to sort to just put those two teams in. So I would have Kansas City 2.3 points better on a neutral.
So 3.5, 4.
I give Kansas City one of the better home fields, but it's still like 1.25.
Okay.
I mean,
Rest, you want to make it 6? I guess here's what I guess.
That's a question I wanted to hit you with right off the bat, and we'll get into it again in the Detroit one. But
Sure.
what do you rate a bye? I've read studies on the bye week. I don't think the bye week in season is 100% comparable with the bye week into the playoffs. I think obviously different beasts. The sample size of teams getting the bye is,
pretty small.
It's pretty small, so it's hard to take a lot from it. But
and also,
it varies. There's so much context with it.
The real thing that muddies the bye value for this round of the playoffs is that it's a very good fucking team with rest and with extra time to prepare. And you're basically like, they're already generally like on average, 6-7 point favorites without the extra help. And so it just kind of pushes them into even more rare air, which is why this is traditionally like such a big, like it's a like, wow, what a big number. Like that the average.
That's where my head's at too, Drew, with both of the bye weeks were given to what we feel like are some of the most premium offensive game planners in the game.
Of course, yeah.
So the guys with not only that, but the Chiefs essentially had week 18 off. They threw Wentz and the gang out there. Obviously, they still had to spend time on that game and not just start focusing on a team they didn't know who they were going to play yet. But with pretty much 2 bye weeks for Andy Reid, Nagy, and everyone else who involved there, and then Ben Johnson, Campbell, and all them with 2 weeks, and Glenn maybe distracted a little bit by interviews. I don't know how much that ties into that, but it's worth. I think it's worth more than I have in years past with these teams. Not like I'm not saying like I'm adding 3 points for this or something, but it's worth a little more with offensive strategists like this, I think. So that's kind of where I'm at, because I had to give them at rest. I had to give them a little bump for extra game planning. I had to give them obviously some sizable bumps over the season for the defense getting better. The offense is healthy now in the passing game. You have some of your receivers that you didn't have earlier. Pacheco's back. So I'm at 8.2.
Okay. So the average line going back to like 89, I guess, is 6.6 for the home team in this spot.
Sure.
The home team is winning 70% of those games, and they are winning by a margin of 6.5. So there's no unseen edge, no hidden edge here. The market is exactly correct over a sample size of, what is that, 70? What's the fucking sample there? 74 games. So non-trivial sample size. You look at a couple of the ones recently, like it's probably in the ballpark of 2 to 2.5 points surcharge on the home team. But the point I was trying to make about what your preseason number was is that, like, I don't think that anyone could say with a straight face that they would have made this number close to a touchdown preseason at all, for even with the extra rest, even with the home field advantage. Like this has been pushed out to rare air because of the Mahomes tax, because of the general kind of just aggressive selling of stock of Houston Texans. And, I don't know that enough has really changed in terms of available bodies and what we've learned about these teams between the start of the season and now to warrant that big of a delta between these two teams. And I would say that, the kind of coming into the season, the Texans defense was like, on paper, it was like, fuck, man, these guys could be fucking good. This could be the best defense in football. And you look at them now and you're like, man, this might be the best defense in football. Like, that's not crazy at all. And the offense was like, well, CJ Stroud year 2, he should take a step forward. He's got all these weapons. Well, the weapons are depleted. And, no Tank Dell, no Stephon Diggs, obviously, but there's still a deep, kind of reservoir of players to work with. And Nico Collins is healthy and he's an elite wide receiver. So I guess, that's which
my biggest changes from the beginning of the season. If you want to go back to that number I gave you and said what I would have made it.
Yeah.
Obviously that doesn't include the big rest. We're probably giving them at least 1.5 points, I guess.
Sure.
For having the bye week. Houston got to be at home last week, so it's not like it's some back-to-back travel spot. It was a nice win for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the biggest changes for Houston, if anything, the defense is better than I thought it would be. But again, it's defense. I can't weight it as heavily as offense.
Yeah.
And then, Tank and Diggs being out is a big knock. The run game being sporadic, I think would be a good word for it. I don't like the game planning. I guess I don't like some of the calls they use.
Sure.
It's not just like he calls first down runs and that's bad. It is like some of the sequencing and it's predictable. Someone's like everyone knows you're going to run in this play and it gets blown up. And I think the other thing that really changed for me, I didn't think the offensive line would be this bad.
Sure.
That again, like some of that was injury stuff.
I'll hold my hand up and say that I expected progress from Stroud, and that hasn't happened. I say that I expected progress from Slowick, and Slowick has regressed. Slowick is the biggest problem with this offense, as far as I can tell.
And those are two huge components to your success in offense.
Yeah, of course.
And then if you're playing behind a bad offensive line, and you got Chris, this is my biggest takeaway: is like both pass rushes, should have
some success,
stellar days. Bad offensive line, and then terrible tackles for the Kansas City Chiefs. Danielle Hunter's one of Will Anderson, just top-notch rushers as far as pass rush win rates, time to quarterback. Like
without question, that's the best duo of any team remaining. Like not close. The thing, this is kind of the thought that I have though, is just like some of what the kind of regression for Stroud and certainly the exposure of Slowick has come at the hands of what you're saying. The offensive line hasn't played well. You know what? It didn't matter at all last year. Like CJ Stroud was offensive line agnostic for some reason. You remember they were pulling guys off the practice squad for to play tackle, like who had never had an NFL snap in their lives, and they were up against the Steelers and they just beat the Steelers, whatever. Right? Like it was.
And maybe that's some of the adjustments that defensive coordinators have made, Drew.
Could
be. Go back. I think there's a lot of regret when you watch film. And it's the same thing as everything. Like when you watch back sports film of your own or anything, it's like, oh, I wish I would have done that. And I think that's got to be such a stressor for coaches when they watch stuff back, especially in losses, when they say like, if we'd have just done this, CJ Stroud would have had a horrible day. Mm-hmm. And I think there was probably enough of like, well, that offensive line was bad. What were we thinking with this game plan? Like we could have absolutely made his life hell.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's just been kind of a wholesale change in how you attack him, how you attack that offensive line, how you throw, I think it's the little stuff in the films that we don't see because we're not deep into the weeds on that. But if you can see him, sometimes it feels like maybe it's like twice a game. The guy runs 70 plays, but twice in that game, there's a disguised coverage that just fucking eats him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he was not ready for that. And then
the pick he threw against the Chargers is a great example. I don't know what the
enough people see enough of those looks, maybe it's just 2-3 times a game and you start building stuff off of that. You build a tree off that. And, like we always talk about the chess match, and it's like the defensive coordinators as a whole kind of won that chess match against Stroud and Slowick this year. But they played in the AFC South. So they won enough games anyway.
Yeah, right. That's fair. I also think that there is a weird, characteristic that Stroud has, which is he can do ridiculous, stupid things from 3rd and 1,000,000, right? And that was a big characteristic to their success last year. That was huge for their success last year. Was like the no chance 3rd down conversions, which extended drives and really kind of kept that offense on the field. And that was the way the year started for them. They were doing a lot of that. And then there was a lot of, they can't keep getting away with this. And then they stopped getting away with it. And as soon as Nico Collins wasn't available, then the 3rd and ridiculous was 3rd and no chance. And there was glimmers of the 3rd and ridiculous at long last week. And then a little bit in that first drive against the Titans that ended up in a touchdown. So I think like some of the magic is being recaptured. I think I'm not saying that this will last forever or throughout this playoff run, but I do think that there's certainly a little bit more of a confidence that Stroud is playing with on the 3rd, and he has no chance. But yeah, he's still taking too many sacks. He's not feeling the pressure well. These are all realities, but I do think that there is a positive to take away from the fact that the Chargers defense played up in the first half of that game and made the Texans defense look bad. And they were playing with their hair. They were playing hard as hell, and they were getting interior pressure aggressively with the stunts. And it was like, man, they know what they're doing. They were ripping the ball out at every opportunity, trying to force the turnovers. Like they were well coached, well prepared, and playing really well. and the Texans hung in there. They didn't capitulate. They didn't collapse. They kept kind of doing their thing until they finally got a breakthrough at that touchdown drive at the end of the first half, which again was fueled by the impossible third down conversion at the goal line where there was fumble. The snap went crazy on Stroud. So there to me at least,
play was such a fun play.
Yeah, it was. To me at least, there's a silver lining potentially in the offense for the Texans, where they are closer to what we saw at the end of last year, where they're closer to what was expected at the beginning of this year. And I think a lot of it comes down to Nico Collins, just because I hold that guy up as a top 5 guy, and he looks healthier now than when he first came back. It took him a long time to get back. When he first came back, he didn't look quite as explosive. When they played on December 21st, he wasn't quite as explosive. They targeted him like 10 times. I think he caught 7 for 60. But there was that game I thought was, and specifically that Texans performance was, to me at least, but they came unafraid. They performed well in that game. That was, of course, where Tank Dell's knee blew up. And it kind of felt like the Texans went a little bit sideways after that. And their defense didn't really kind of make the key plays in that contest. They didn't get the favorable whistle in that contest. But, I thought that was a good proof of concept that if we see this matchup again, which we are likely to, then, the Texans are going to be ready for it. And so I think the seed has been planted for me for a while that the Texans were going to be a bet on in the wild card round and a bet on this week. And the fact that you're getting 8.5 points to line up with them, I think, is a good bet, and I bet it. And I want to kind of point out that and I've said this a couple times, so if you listen to all the content I do, apologies for the repetitiveness, but please push back, because I know that you think that there's certainly maybe a little bit more Chiefs to say about the Chiefs in this one, but I think we've learned some things about the Chiefs from the preseason that are being ignored by the market. And you brought up that Watson is back for the secondary. If that solves all their problems with their pass defense, so be it. But that still is a pass defense that got scorched by some shit. And I would not be.
I still have them
not be hanging my hat on this pass defense being especially great. I think the run defense for the Chiefs is outstanding. I think the pass defense can be beaten. And I think that is one of their soft spots, right? I would also say that, yes, Chris Jones is available. And yes, he is an absolute monster. And yes, he comes down the middle of the pipe and is a massive disruptor. But outside of him, they have not been good at generating much in the way of pass rush. And because of that, there has been a relative high frequency. I think Chris Jones must be the most double-teamed man in all of football, and I don't think it's close. It's certainly not TJ Watt for you TJ Watt defenders. I think it's Chris Jones. And so there's a little bit of a plan in place, I believe, at least to provide help to chip or put two bodies on Jones so that he's a little less disruptive coming up the middle, and then force someone else on that defense to generate pressure and to defend Nico Collins. I'm not sure it can be done. So I think we learned a little bit that there is an Achilles heel with the Chiefs defense. And I think we know that there's a bit of Achilles heel with the Chiefs offense. Pat Mahomes has been eating sacks this year like we haven't seen at a rate in all of his time as a pro. I don't understand why, but he is no longer like this magical sack avoidance maestro. And this is the kind of game where if you are not getting good tackle play and you are up against these monsters, you're going to be under pressure, and he's going to have to kind of recover that magic. And I kind of want to see it. Like, prove it that you have that still and that you were just saving it for whatever dumb reason. And I think the pressure could impact the passing game here. And I think the proclivity for the Texans to, kind of sell out to get the takeaways might give them some extra possessions in this game. So I see a lot of kind of where the Chiefs are weak, offense and defensively, fits pretty well with what the good things you can say about the Texans, which matchup wise at least has me somewhat hopeful that this could be the last swing, last bite at the apple backing this Texan squad.
I struggle with a little. I still don't know about them versus. I'd still have this as a good defense. If you look, and again, I have to shake out Week 18. We can't use that data. Like, that was not a real game.
Sure.
But if you take that out,
talking about the Chiefs?
Yeah,
of course.
You take the second half of the season, it was still above average in most of the metrics for coverage, for pass rush. It's kind of a pressure but don't get home, which sometimes isn't always like the most predictive thing. Sometimes it's just, hey, you get a bunch of pressures and you don't finish them. Obviously, the Mahomes sack thing is high. It's his highest sack rate of his career. It's like 5.8%. I think most of his other years were in the 4% range. But I really do think you have to blame that on the tackles. I don't think those tackles are fixing themselves in the bye week. But second trivia question, who is the only coordinator who's won a Super Bowl with two different franchises as the coordinator? It can't be, hey, he was the wide receivers coach for, the greatest show on turf.
Spagnuolo, right? Spagnuolo with the Giants and the Chiefs.
Yes,
is he the only period?
He's the only one.
Only period in history.
Yeah, which is kind of amazing when I read that.
What? Really?
Yeah.
He's got, how does he have
offensive or defensive?
Does he have two with the Giants or just one?
Just the one, just the perfect season beaters. He was with them as a coordinator that year.
Wow.
He went back to the Giants at one point under like McAdoo too, but he's bounced around. But I think he's been good. And if they get back with Watson, I think we're gonna know quickly like if Nico's gonna beat you or not. Because 2 years ago, and by 2 years ago, I just mean the 2023 season, when we still had Snead. It was Snead McDuck. You had two press corners who were beating the shit out of people on the offensive line, the line of scrimmage, and they just weren't able to get good separation. They weren't able to get to their spots to make these routes happen. And it worked because they had strong safety play, they had good linebackers, and the pass rush was still healthy at that point. So I'm curious to see what he does, because you basically have Collins, and then it gets a little thin after that. I know Mechie got 1 million targets, but without Diggs, without Tank, I think you can get pretty physical and pretty aggressive with your corners. And I think we'll find out early. Like, it's probably going to come down to, as much as Mahomes is probably the skeleton key to most games that he plays in, I think it's going to come down to Spags and how he treats his coverages and how we see this pass rush coming at him. If it looks like he's in his bag, it's like Chiefs by 17. If Nico's finding spots, if there's soft zones and he's finding gaps, finding seams, finding himself open, it's going to be a close game, and I think it'll come down to the last possession. Either way, I had my one run with Houston, and I'm tapping out right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I also have this tiny fear that, like, we talk about it all the time. We make the comparison, the analogy to the NBA, where it's like, hey, this team's won multiple NBA championships, and they just want to make it through the season healthy. And we saw what happened with Kelsey even last year. It's like, he was like, he's getting kind of old, and then they get to the playoffs. It's like, holy shit, like, did they give him some drugs? Because it's like they can just unleash that. Well, I don't know that it's Kelsey, but I'm saying, is there this stupid second gear that all the shit they've been saving?
There is
the amount of
revisionist history about last year's Chiefs runs that I hear across the space is really something.
They played really well in the playoffs.
They played really well against the teal Dolphins in 0 million below zero.
Where do you think
congratulations, the Dolphins?
Where do you think that Dolphins team was ranked for you?
They just laid down.
Where do you think that Dolphins team
was my favorite bet of the playoffs? So that's not.
I know, but where do you think they were rated for you?
They were rated high, but that situation was they were drawing dead the minute that they got scheduled. that game was over the minute it was on the schedule. And then
Houston's like
Stephon Diggs catches that deep ball. They're done in the divisional round. There's no magical Chiefs anymore. The Ravens, I think, largely beat themselves, and the Niners pretty much beat themselves. Like, that was
good teams.
I know, but like still like everybody just got the fuck out of their way. And everyone is like, well, Mahomes is a god. I mean, he won another Super Bowl, so he's a god. And it's like, at the end of the game against the Niners, like when he needed to score a touchdown, win a game. Yeah,
I think
over.
You're revisionist.
I'm like just doing what, like, dude. But I lived through Tom Brady getting this same treatment when there were lots of reasons and lots of luck and lots of kind of fortuitous bounces that the Patriots got. And Brady gets another chip and he's like, well, fucking this guy, he can't lose, And it's just like, that's the air about what's going on with Mahomes right now. But you know what else? Tom Brady lost plenty of playoff games. Like there's certainly a time and a place where an opponent comes to you, and we're going to revisit this next week, win or, cover or not for the Chiefs. We're going to revisit this next week because I don't think this Chiefs team is very good.
Okay. Well, and to be fair, I was talking more about Kelsey than Mahomes.
Okay.
And Kelsey, in the Buffalo and Baltimore games.
Sure. He was hugely featured. Right. Because no one else could catch a pass.
I love San Francisco, but I think Buffalo and Baltimore were better slightly. And those were, so he went 75, 116, and 93. He was your leading receiver for all the games that weren't the shitty Miami game.
Okay.
Mahomes had 333 in the Super Bowl. Their run game wasn't even that good. It was, I know what you're saying, but it's not like Mahomes was bad. And they won because the other team fell down at the goal line.
Well, they won because the Niners dropped a punt, right?
So truthfully, like of all those games, the Niners won, who I rated.
Yeah, they were
lesser. They were the ones that should have got the win.
Yeah,
they did turtle. You can't turtle against this team. Well, that's the thing. You can do that against a bad team and probably get away with it.
Yeah,
you turtle against Mahomes.
I will just say this: like, if the Chiefs win this year, considering the path that looks likely for them, which is a tough test against a good defense this week, who matches up well against you, the best team in football, be it Buffalo or Baltimore next week, and then a very, very live challenger from the NFC of the Super Bowl. If they win this, if they carry this gauntlet, this will be the most impressive of their titles to me.
I'm so pumped for next week. Like to have Bills, Ravens, and then one of those teams, probably Chiefs, 2 weeks in a row. Those are electric.
Yeah.
And this number is probably too big, but at this point,
okay.
Taking the Houston money and walking.
Okay. I played 8.5. I think it should be 7. I can make a case it should be lower. I backed the Chiefs against this Texans team at 3.5 in recent memory. Not even a month ago. Same spot, same location. Healthier Nico Collins. I don't know, man.
Jalen Watson, man. It's the missing piece.
If you're telling me Jalen Watson is worth 5 points, I quit. I quit.
Well, true. I mean, the rest situation is a big part of it.
I know. That's a big part of it. A big part of it. And the boogeyman factor. Like Mahomes and Andy Reid in this spot have a boogeyman factor that's real. And did they cover against the Browns in this spot? I think they did. But Mahomes got hurt in that game. They covered against the Jags. Mahomes got hurt in that game. They covered against the Texans in this spot when they were down 24-3, 24-0. I forget. Yeah. How about that though? Like in recent memory, this matchup, this round should have been lined with the total in the 70s, and now it's the lowest total on the board. Things change quickly. Yeah. Amazing. But anyway, I got nothing else to now on. I think Texans are the side. Let's move on to the nightcap. You want to do the honors?
Yes. The nightcap will be Detroit getting their feet wet. The other bye team, not like that. But Washington at Detroit. This is your third straight road game for Washington. They're 9.5 point dogs. Huge total, 55. Injury stuff. Montgomery, which I wasn't so sure this is when we'd see him when the injury first occurred. I thought it might be next week or maybe if they got that far into the Super Bowl, but he's a full go. He's on track to return. Terry and Arnold. He was kind of banged up. He's expected to play. Same thing with guard Kevin Zeitler for the Commanders. Bobby Wagner missed his second practice in a row with an ankle injury. I don't think it happened on that play, but I'd like to imagine it was because he tried to stop the train that was Baker Mayfield. That was a hard hit. Mm-hmm. That was a pretty fun game. That was a good game. When did these two teams first play each other, Drew? What year?
In franchise? You mean playoffs or franchise?
Any game against each other. Just their first matchup.
1930.
Oh, 32.
Ah, fuck. Damn.
Oh, I thought you were going to keep going. Washington, they used to have an offensive name. This is before that. They were the Boston Braves, which, fuck. I guess that's offensive too. They had a different Native American name back in the day. And then Detroit was actually the Portsmouth Spartans.
I didn't even know there was a Portsmouth, Michigan.
I think it's a suburb of Detroit, honestly.
Huh.
I think it's nearby. All the towns near Detroit, if you look at the suburbs, they're all just names of cars. It's like, oh, Plymouth. There's like Plymouth, Michigan, and I don't know if Oldsmobile's a town. That doesn't sound right. Either way, 7 p.m. Saturday night. This should be a banger. I don't know if you feel the same way about this one being too many points. It seems like an awful tough matchup considering this run defense for Washington is rated about as low as a team in the playoffs can be, I suppose. And then if we're going to have full go Monty and full go Gibbs, I think that's a bit of an issue. Secondary is improved, but this is still, one of the best offensive lines you'll have protecting Goff. Goff's look just fine. It's not like he's new to the playoffs. I think this is a tall test, even though it's a ton of points and it's one of the most dynamic quarterbacks that's left in the playoffs, with all due respect to all the MVP candidates. Like Jalen Daniels didn't look all that shook, and he's a big problem to defend because he does not seem to give a shit about running into danger. And obviously they have a good run scheme, and this Detroit defense, so I think that's your biggest decision here is what we saw against Minnesota, Detroit's defense coming around, Anzalone matters, or was it more of what we saw last week where KOC he was walking a tightrope for 16 games and he was balancing Sam Darnold on his shoulders, and eventually you just can't do it anymore. And he's going to start taking horrible sacks, which he's going to start throwing interceptions. He's going to start missing wide open receivers in the end zone. Cause there were some good plays called. I didn't love everything KOC did, but in that Detroit game, I feel like Minnesota made Detroit's defense look pretty good. And, even if I give them a sizable upgrade, they're not pretty good. It's still Detroit's defense. Total, and the total reflects it. Your thoughts on that matchup, I guess?
I can't land the plane on the right side for this game. I'm going in circles here. Yeah. I could make the case for either the Linos with the points or Linos laying the points or with Commanders taking the points. But I would say this: if you like the Commanders in this game, I would almost say find an alt spread, take the money line, because the fourth down variance makes this more of a volatile outcome one way or the other. I would say if you like the Lions in this one, sell, get out to like 14.5. Because if the Lions are winning, if the Lions are covering 9.5, that's because they scored 42 points and the Commanders went for fourth down 5 times in a row in the second half and couldn't get any, right? Like there's the game states, I think, are a little bit far away from the fair. Does that make sense? Like if this game goes to script and
I know what you're saying.
This game goes to script and it's 33-23. I will be sincerely surprised, right? If this is a game that is decided by a team with the ball, if the cover is decided by the Commanders getting in the back door or the garbage time points for the Lions, I'll be surprised. I think this is going to be decided one way or the other long before the final whistle.
This is a good point from Patrick too. The fourth down variance makes the total unplayable as well. I did not come into this season thinking that Dan Quinn was going to be quite as aggressive on fourth down as he is.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's something, and maybe it's unfair to Dan Quinn, but there's something about a defensive-minded head coach that just like you associate them with conservative play calling. Because what's the phrase that always goes with, take the points or punt the ball or whatever the conservative play call is. It's like, well, do that and trust your defense. The trust your defense part goes hand in hand with a defensive coordinator as a head coach. And Obviously, Dan Campbell is very aggressive as well. And yeah, this game feels like there's a game state where there's 850 total yards and like 33 total points. Where
Could be
all it takes is a couple of fourth down stops.
I mean, that's that you're basically describing the Tampa Washington game.
Yeah.
Like that thing was 43 total points in that one. No, then they moved aggressively. All right, so fun kind of nuggets for you, because I was wondering if we were being fooled a little bit by recency on this, or if it was for real. These are two of the fewest punting teams in the NFL. Lions have only punted 45 times. That is the best in the NFL. Commanders have only punted 50 times. That is fourth best. The fourth down, or really actually, before going to fourth down, these are the number 1 and 2 teams in the NFL in terms of red zone appearances. That's kind of where the big delta is between these two teams, if you want to get serious. When they're in the red zone, the Lions score touchdowns.
Yeah.
The Commanders don't. In fact, the Commanders' red zone conversion number is like a little bit, it's like kind of scary low, considering who they have with the ball in his hands on every snap. And it's almost like when the field gets short, either Cliff calls bad plays, or he doesn't have the space he needs to run the plays he wants, or Daniels isn't as good of a goal line type of back, goal line type of ball carrier. But whatever the case is, Commanders are only 63% in the red zone. Lions are at 70. That's freaking amazing. And
of all the shitty things I've said about, the Detroit defense, it is a top 10 red zone defense, and some of that context, it's, how many red zone possessions did you actually defend over the course of the year? Maybe it's not a huge sample, and what's the difference between 50 and 60, but they are right around 50% as a defense, which is good. The best team was Denver at 44%. The worst is Dallas. 3 out of every 4 red zone possessions were on the ends of that. That's terrible. It's a big gap. 68% is the next team. They are.
Yeah. So fourth down attempts is interesting too. Obviously, the teams that are kind of at the top of the list for fourth down attempts is a lot of teams that were losing a lot of games, like the Browns, the Giants. But when it comes to attempts, the Lions were fourth. They had 33 fourth down attempts. They converted 67% of those. The Commanders only attempted 23 fourth downs, which is middle of the pack, Andy. But would you be surprised to know that they converted 87% of the fourth downs they attempted? That is insane. Like, it is weird to look at these numbers and be like, okay, yeah, like when they had to play, they needed to get the yards. The Lions in the red zone, and then at the 40, like they were about as successful either way. The commies could not get it done in the red zone, but they were very good at getting those fourth downs in the middle of the field, like impossibly good. And it could have just been they chose their times to go for it a little bit more carefully. I don't know, but that number is amazing. 87% of fourth downs converted that's God tier.
There is something, just anecdotally thinking of, watching red zone possessions by Washington. It feels like Daniels is, limited in that. I don't know how to explain. It's not like he's always getting sacked, but he's less likely to beat the pressure. I think because he beats pressure by extending the plays, then receivers are able to move around and find space, and there's just less space for that to do. And then at the same time, if you're closer to the goal line and to the end line, there's going to be a safety a lot closer to you at that point too. If you do decide to start running, people can come up, and it just feels like the red zone play calling is different. I don't know. I have a hard time being too hard on Cliff because it's been a good year.
Yeah, in that Tampa Bay
I think
game,
some of the aggression,
in my mind, it was so bad. Yeah,
some of the aggression from Quinn just feels like, like this kid's good.
Yeah,
go ahead. Like,
he's
why
probably
not?
gonna get it. Yeah,
yeah,
he's gonna make me look good. Yeah. All right. So about the actual handicap here, the first thing that came to mind here, thinking about how to price this game, was trying to crack like what degree of success is the Lions offense going to have, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that that's quantifiable. The limit does not exist. I don't think this is like kind of the kiss of death matchup, I believe, for the the Commanders and where they. I just can't. I got the 91 skins on my mind. The Commanders are the weakest, kind of at the linebacking core and coverage, and at the safety level, and the Ben Johnson kind of schematic and the Goff kind of excellence is picking apart that spot on the field literally. And I feel like you do that first, and then that unlocks Jameson Williams on the flies. That unlocks Gibbs in the screen game, right? Like you make the Commanders commit more to the intermediate portion of the field because you're just beating them over the head there, and then just exploit the boundaries. Like it feels very straightforward on how you plan for success here if you are Detroit. Detroit's team total is almost 35. That is unbelievably high, but for a good reason. I don't think there's a huge edge there. Like I don't think this is obvious. Oh, you're gonna get 5 touchdowns in their sleep. That's not easy. Like this is gonna be tough for them. Like to get their team total, no question. The question then in terms of cover, in terms of total, is does Washington answer? And I think that kind of depends on the way you started at the top, which is, do you feel like the Lions defense is getting healthier, and whether any of what we saw in week 18 was real, or was that a product of Sam Darnold? And is this defense going to be exposed? Because we've kind of been waiting for it all year long, and it only really happened during that Bills game. Otherwise, like they rate high, they've been tested and done well. Like there's a lot of signal that this is a good defense. And I think that they're just well coached by Glenn and well coordinated. And I think they just play hard because Dan Campbell gets them, shot out of a rocket. And, the fact that they're able to generate pressure without any of their good D linemen is amazing, but they can do it. It's mostly through scheme. The fact that their safeties are so excellent at both taking the ball away and just in general disguising what their responsibility is on a given play is very, very useful. But certainly with the emergence of De'Ami Brown, certainly with Daniels being somewhat immune to pressure, I can see a world where the Commanders are pretty successful here offensively. So and in that case,
you're kind of landing where I'm landing. I do respect Glenn, and I think Anzalone made a difference. But even when you can get pressure on this kid, it seems to blow up in your face sometimes.
Of course,
with some of the scrambles,
sure,
and the like you said, the emergence of some other receivers, and well, I mean, what are they but the Walmart knockoff Bills? Like you have a schoolyard draw it up in the dirt, kind of extending the play quarterback. You don't have a strong wide receiver room, and if they're going to be a pain in the ass like the Bills were that day. I'm strongly considering Washington's team total over 23.5. Because I like Washington. I think they can be successful on offense and still lose by 15 points. Their defense I can't find a matchup that they're like, oh, their pass rush has gotten a little better. Well, it's against a brick wall today. That's going to suck. Their secondary has gotten good. Oh, well, they have not only a field stretcher and a possession guy who's maybe the best in the league at that. They have a good tight end and 2 running backs who can both catch the ball. Like,
sure, there's
so many things to try to defend for Quinn, and they just don't have the personnel, I don't think, to take care of it, especially if Wagner is like out for this game. Like, that's just one more thing you can't have. So,
okay.
The over is so high where I feel like I believe in Washington's offense, and that's as far as I can go with it. Team, you're going to pay like minus 115, minus 20 on that, but 23.5 seems very doable.
So I think the best possible outcome here is literally like a long drive and a 4th down fail inside the 10 for the Lions, a long drive and a 4th down fail inside the 10 for the Commanders, and then a live over smash. Like, I don't think that scoring
over 49.
Something like that where there's a depression in the live price, and then get on board with an over. We may already have our second half play in the books for
we'll do both nights. You're fine with that, both night games again?
Yeah. Let me ask you this: can you either slay this, throw the dirt on this, or tell me if there is some grain of truth? Team like the Commanders, young, first year together, not a lot of playoff experience. just gets an enormous primetime win on the road as dogs. They come home. Everyone in the city is just slobbering how good they are, how great they are. This kid's the next coming. We're going to be contenders for the next decade. Is there a world where they lose a bit of focus? They are a little bit like mission accomplished, and they come out and they do what the Giants did against the Eagles after they beat the Vikings, or what Houston did against the Ravens after they beat the Browns, right? Like a young team that doesn't have big success like this. Like,
yeah, I hate to make that comparison because that Giants team sucked shit. Like, that team was terrible. Like that Daniel Jones team beat Minnesota because Minnesota team was worse, and they had like a bottom one defense. I mean, you remember how good the Giants offense looked that day? It's because they were playing a Pop Warner defense, and I mean that was the end of that coordinator's tenure at that point too. So it's hard to compare them with them because they actually have a talented quarterback, and I don't think so because of. It's funny too. I was checking this too. So the coordinator was Ed Donatel, and Tom Donatel is a coach for the Commanders. I was trying to. There was a name that was sticking out for me. Either way, I mean, you got two of your senior coaches in Quinn and Kingsbury have been head coaches. Quinn's been in some big spots. He's been around for long enough.
That's a funny name.
I
combined Cliff and Kingsbury.
I know. I think I tried to say Jeff Klingler.
I think we refer to him as Kingsbury from this day forward.
I kind of like it.
But is there a kernel of missions accomplished here, and that they're playing with house money?
No, I mean.
Like, what is the anatomy of a team that comes in and pulls off an upset against a mighty Lions? Like, what is the anatomy of a team?
You have a little bit of the opposite of that, Drew, don't you? When you're playing with house money, where like, hey, we're not expected to win this game. We're the biggest underdog of the weekend. We weren't expected to make the playoffs. We definitely weren't, expected to win a playoff game. It's not like they were a massive fave dog, but they were a dog. Like, you're kind of playing without pressure at that point. All the pressure's on Detroit not to screw this up. Like, if anything, Detroit has to be thinking about last year where they should have gone to the Super Bowl and they miffed it. And, this should be the easier of the two games, but it's still an NFL playoff game and things can happen. Double-digit favorites lose. So I think pressure's on Detroit at this point. And I don't know that Washington has some sort of letdown with the coaching staff they had. Dan Quinn doesn't seem like the kind of type who'd be like, all right, boys, well, no,
I know.
No
one actually does say that sort of stuff, but you can't help but in the back of your head be like, this is a can't lose game for us, even if we lose, because we've already done everything. I don't know that you wake up on Monday morning and read the paper and listen to the sports. And who knows if they're even reading the paper? They're probably reading their tablets. But who knows if you're reading the blogs, you're listening to Get Up, and you're like, okay, Super Bowl this year for us. Like, yeah, like this is where it starts. Like, this was just step one. Like, we gotta start. We're on to Detroit. Like, I don't know that that's the mentality for a team like this.
That's crazy to say to me. Like, that's insane. I don't know. Like, I just don't. People at that level think like that. Like,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like, these are the best in the world at what they do.
I think I think a good amount of them are like, man, I'm gonna get fucking paid. Like,
I know there's that too.
Yeah,
I know there's that too.
Like, I just bought myself 4 more years in this league. Fuck yeah.
No, for sure. There's that sense, but like, as a team, like, you feel like you can beat anybody. It's any given Sunday. It doesn't matter how big of an underdog you are. Like, you feel like, hey, other teams have done this. Like, nobody is guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl. And you are 2 wins away.
Okay. So we've settled on not a thing. Okay.
No, you've beaten Philly already. Like, you feel like you can beat the 3 teams that are left in the NFC, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're coming into this game with a bunch of injuries and you maybe didn't deserve to win the last game. This is a good team, and I think you have to have that mentality that I can win and I can beat anybody.
So we
spent too much time on psyche.
Well, yeah, no, I know.
It's just fun to talk about.
It is, and like the markets are not soft this time of year. I'm sorry if you needed me to tell you this. So you're looking for either some matchup that ends up being the fucking difference maker or some X factor that is tough to quantify. And I would tell you this, like we talked about it off the top. If you're off a bye in the divisional round at home, you are right away 70% chance to win the game. 30% of the time you lose. And I kind of spent a little time digging through the upsets today to try to come up with what is kind of the common theme here. But is there a common theme? Are there a couple of sort of DNA of an upset at this round? And it's either the favored team was a little fraudulent, a little fatally flawed, or the challenger was real experienced. Like they had a quarterback who had been to the Super Bowl before. They had a coach who was underseeded as a wild card team, right? And last time that there were upsets,
underseeded.
What's that?
I don't know that they were underseeded.
Well, the 2021 Niners were the last team to do this. They were underseeded.
Yeah, I'm saying Washington
against
is
the Packers. Oh Washington. No, the Packers. No, I'm just saying. Like I couldn't convince myself that the Packers. Yeah. I couldn't convince myself that the Commanders kind of fit the mold of the underrated challenger, and I couldn't convince myself that the Lions fit the mold of overrated favorite. So I think ultimately, this is a game that probably comes down to how long can the Commanders hang, and then at some point the dam breaks and the Lions get to 42 and the Commanders are stuck at 21 or whatever.
Yeah, I guess I gave Detroit obviously the same bump I gave Kansas City for home field and rest and all that. And then I took a little extra away for Washington having traveled for the third straight week. I still only got to like 8.25. You know, I'm close. I don't think there's a huge difference between that and 9.5, but I'm pretty much on market here. I think I am going to play that Washington team total over. I can see their offense having like, how do you win this game? If you're game planning, I think if you're, as much as I said, you have to have that rah spirit. We can beat anybody with 2 games from the Super Bowl. I think you understand that defense isn't your strong suit. And the game plan has to be, we're not going to win this game with field goals. We're going to be aggressive in the red zone. You got to have some better shit going on, Cliff. Cliff Kingsbury better bring the red zone.
If that's the case, then you're not trying to get to 24. You're trying to get to 28.
Trying to get to 38.
Well, I'm saying like if you play Washington over 23, you need 28 points, right?
Yeah. Alt team totals are a thing. Harder to find for me.
You kind of need them to get a field goal on their first drive and then 3 touchdowns.
Or just get to 28. That's fine too.
Yeah, or 28, I guess, which is possible. It's worth mentioning that the Commanders have covered this number every game they've played this year, going back to Tampa.
Yeah. So
when they've lost close. All right. Sidebar conversation. We've covered 2 games. They both fall into the alternate teaser zone. Is it worth laying -140 to tease these games together at 7 points?
So I was looking at that. I was wondering about just playing alt spreads, like putting together a 2.5, a 2.5, and then Ohio State 2.5.
Okay. What did you figure out with the math there? Does it work?
I think that's a fun. So those are like, -400 legs. It gets pretty close. But if you did it here, I'm going to do it real quick. So you got the Houston Kansas City game. We'll take that down. The alt spread on that is 2.5, 2, and that's going to be -380 here. That parlay is -177. Just I played it at one place. So I was going to say
-140.
Yeah, -140. Well,
that's a 7-point teaser.
If you can get -140, most places are going to charge you 50 or 60 on that. But even that's better than the price I just got.
Bookmakers' difference between 6 and 7 is 120 and 140. Do you know that?
Oh yeah, they still have 140. Okay,
yeah,
that's not bad. I'm saying people have legal outs. Like you're not getting that price.
Yeah, who cares about them? I'm just kidding. Okay, so the parlay math works out to 170, so there is value at 140. That's kind of what I was wondering.
All right, here we go. Detroit -2.5, Kansas City -2.5, Ohio State money line, even money.
Compared to what's the 3-leg 7-point teaser?
actually
That's fun.
choose it. It's fun. Just love getting 2.5. I know I'm gonna have to look at what the actual teaser pays.
I have no idea what the 3-leg teaser price is. I don't think I've ever played one. Going back to the Bovada Sweetheart days when you could parlay 3 teams for 10 points.
You should be getting like
-110
so on
or whatever.
a 6-pointer. You want to get 160 plus 160.
Okay.
But you're not going to anymore. If you can get 150, you're happy, I think.
So a 3-leg.
I just pulled up Bovada. Plus 150.
A 3-leg 7-pointer is plus 120.
Oh, so I did a 6-pointer. I took Detroit to 3, Chiefs to 2, Ohio State to 2. That pays plus 150.
Okay.
I don't hate that. I don't really watch college football, but I watched.
Oh, did you see, by the way, bookmaker index there? They index their lines number to 10. So you can't do it there actually anymore.
Lattimore is Lattimore enough of a guy that he can still neutralize one of Detroit's guy? It did not appear so. It did not appear so last week. Mike Evans. I don't know if Evans was in his head because they have that long history, but he looked like horseshit. He looked so bad in some of those, little quick steps and double moves. Like he got bad. He got beat bad.
Yeah. I'm not.
We joked like he should have punched Evans in the face and tried to draw him into a fight.
Well, yeah, Evans got him, right?
And Lattimore moved on though, so such is life. All right, Sunday,
the Rams Eagles. I will go back to matchup advantage here. Eagles. There is a very clear whiff of friskiness of the Rams, obviously. But this is, I think this is the one opponent that they are drawing dead against. The Eagles-Rams matchup for the regular season, I think, was pretty illustrative of the fact that the Eagles offense fits hand in glove with what the Rams defense can't do well, and vice versa. The Rams defense is a little bit of an enigma because you look at just the performances in recent weeks and it looks like they've solved something. They've figured something out. They're playing substantially better. To me, it seems fueled almost entirely by an aggressive young pass rush going up against weak interior offensive lines and quarterbacks who are staring down pressure. And I think the interior offensive line for the Eagles is outstanding. And I think that the pressure is going to be negligible. And I think Jalen Hurts getting matchup, having wide receiver matchups with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, who wasn't even available last time they played against this secondary, is a problem. I think the passing game for the Eagles is going to be pretty difficult for the Rams to stop. And Barkley looks fresh. No real expectation here that the Eagles are going to look like they looked last week. And I think you're getting a little bit of a buy low in the Eagles because their offense was so clunky last week. The Eagles defense is as good as advertised, in my opinion. They are able to generate pressure with 4. They are able to deploy Vic Fangio's shell ideally. And I think that cuts off the Sean McVay's entire, just basic game plan here. He's going to have to come up with some way to either get Kyron Williams going, which he couldn't last time they played, or some way to just, crack that shell. And I'm not sure I see it happening. Stafford plays his worst when he's up against this type of defense. He plays his best when he's up against the Flores type of defense. And the fact that you're getting these 2 games back to back and everybody's kind of gushing about how great Stafford was, like, I'm not saying he's not great, but if you come out of this game thinking like, wow, why did I believe in Stafford? Like, it's not going to surprise me. Like, I think if in another world where the Packers play a clean game and beat the Eagles in the 2-7, and this is like, Rams Bucks or Rams Commanders, then the Rams are fucking winning. Like, they can handle both of those teams pretty comfortably, I think. This is not the opponent for them. And I'm pretty sure the ride's over for the Rams.
I agree with you. I'm on this side, but I want to throw cold water just because.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Nakobe Dean is injured and will miss the rest of the season. That is a bad thing. Obviously, he's your green dot. Zach Bond is a very good linebacker. He's going to take over the communication duties, but it creates a little bit of a hole. When these teams first did play, obviously you had Brandon Graham and Nakobe Dean fully healthy playing, but I do want to point out some of the other young players, like the young rookie corners and some of the youth that they've brought in, even Bond himself, have gotten a lot better since that point in the season too. So maybe it is, I don't think it's a net neutral because Dean isn't replaceable, by Oren Burke and, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., whoever they're going to roll out. It's probably going to be a mix and match of those guys. But at the same time, this defense is better as a whole since back then. And like you said, they didn't have their wide receivers healthy at the time. That's a huge difference here. And, we saw what happened last week was you had a quarterback who was getting pressured constantly and his brain was turning into the blue screen of death. And he would just fall backwards with people on his lap. And things, obviously, the Minnesota had some bad luck too with the two fumbles one way or the other. They weren't going to win that game regardless, but the Rams got a little lucky with some calls as well.
Oh,
I don't know that they'll have that sort of luck with the pass rush this week, like you said. It does feel like there's too many things to try to game plan and defend for if you are this Rams defense. And then so Tyler Higbee, hospital after the game, coughing up blood. Should be fine. Rub some dirt on his lungs, and he's going to be good to go, it sounds like. Killa Witherspoon, though. Killa Witherspoon. He had a weird one. It was like on that touchdown to Hawkinson, so they're calling it a thigh injury, but it wasn't like he got hit. It's like he pulled up lame. So I don't know if it's a torn quad or what they want to call it, or a hammy. When they say thigh, I never know which side they mean. Either way,
I think the Rams took more shots than they're acknowledging.
Yeah, so he might not play. He took over for Durant earlier in the season, so they might have to go to a worser player at corner, which doesn't seem ideal against our literate friend and Devonta Smith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you see that book? That book went, if you go on Amazon, it shows like week over week. It went up 53,000,000% from last week. That's not hyperbole. That's not a number.
At that point, why are you even using percent?
Yeah, it just made me laugh because the number, it showed a screenshot. I'm like, oh my God, every asshole in Philly bought this book.
That's amazing.
Good for that. It's funny. It's funny how like something like that can just, who knows? Maybe that guy was fine and he's written 100 books and he's rich already. But I'd like to imagine he was a struggling author and this changed his life because that's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Also, it's funny. I couldn't really remember this game. I don't know that we did a halftime show. That's probably why I forget if I'm forgetting it. I don't know if Stafford's ever won a big cold game before. I don't think he has.
Stafford as a whole has been very good in the playoffs.
Yeah, of course. But it's against the likes of the freaking Bucks and the Niners and, like a bunch of teams he knows how to beat. Like, I don't think this is the team for him personally. But, okay. I forgot in the first time these guys matched up. Do you remember what Barkley did?
Couldn't tell you.
Just give me a guess of what his stat line looked like.
What was his final score? That was like 35.
It was 37-20.
Oh, was that his game? Like, was that the big one where he ripped off like 2 long touchdowns?
He had
200 yards.
255 yards on the ground.
Okay.
He had 47 yards through the air. He was good for 300 yards of offense by himself. Holy shit.
Pretty good.
Holy shit. It was
10 yards a carry.
Yes, 10 yards a carry. 2 touchdowns on the ground. There was just not much resistance for the Eagles. And I don't know that this is going to be that different of a game. I'm not saying it's going to be just a complete another blowout, but I think laying the points with the Eagles is the right side. And yeah, I don't love going against the Ramley. But I think they needed the pack to do this job for them. Wow. So
good home field. Hopefully the fans
else?
are nicer this week. I'm with you.
Yeah. Okay. I don't need to reflect anymore on some of the other X factors here, but the Higbee injury probably matters. The Cooper Cup being like uber washed probably matters. Kyron Williams was absolutely useless in the first matchup. Actually, wasn't absolutely useless. He was. Kyron Williams was okay, but his EPA per touch was terrible in that game. I guess because he fumbled the ball. That's why his EPA is so trash. Stafford wasn't even that bad, although he did get sacked 5 times in that game.
He didn't lose that fumble though. Does that count against you? If
he fumbled recovered? Twice and lost one.
Oh, he did lose the other one. You're right.
Yeah. But yeah. Stafford lost. Stafford fumbled, but didn't lose it. Cup fumbled, didn't lose it. So like that game could have been even worse. I just don't. I don't think the Rams are up for this. We did not mention that the Rams are on a short week. I think that matters. We didn't mention that the Rams are flying across the country and playing in an early time zone. I think that matters. We forgot to mention that the Commanders are on their 3rd straight week on the road.
Oh, we said that. I mentioned that a couple times.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they finished the season road game against Dallas. So they have
Dallas, Tampa, Detroit. So yeah.
A little bit of travel for them. And yeah, I did give the Eagles a little bump for the situational stuff, like you said.
Okay.
The Rams having to, even though it's Sunday, it's not Saturday at least, but the Rams played on Monday night, so they get a little bit of a negative bump, and then just the link at home, late indoor team playing outdoors in cold weather across the country. Situationally, all of it lines up for Philly.
Yeah, Xavier is noting it's breaking my heart too, but I don't know, man. Like if Green Bay had just come through for them, they were probably going to the Super Bowl. Sucks. Well, what else we got?
Yes.
Dead. Yeah, I think
Eagles are live. Sixers are dead.
Dead.
Like you don't even have to worry about burying them alive. You cremate that.
You don't have to do the knife through the heart to make sure they're actually dead.
It's not a vampire. I mean,
no, that's from a book that I'm forgetting the name of. Anyway, let's talk about the last game. The game
Women?
of it's called
guys?
The Elementals. You ever heard of that one? The Elementals is written by the guy who wrote Beetlejuice. It's very dark and very good. I would save it for Halloween though. You don't want to read that this time of year. Too dark.
Yeah. I'm reading Kon-Tiki.
Ooh, good one. About the voyage.
I like it.
Is it about the original voyage or is it about the follow-up? Or it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, the original. Like it's crazy. Like he has to prove that they left from South America to habitate like Tahiti in that area.
Got it. Okay. Anyway, the game
Baltimore Buffalo, or do you have anything else on that one?
Let's talk about Baltimore Buffalo.
Okay. I don't really have anything on this. I think
I don't either. This is the best game of the playoffs. It's the de facto Super Bowl, I think. And
unbettable.
Ultimately, it's unbettable. Yes. Yeah. Like if you think there's an edge in this game, show me your luckiest coin and, tell me why.
I know some people out there have made bets on this. I know somebody.
Of course. I have a shitload of Ravens futures expecting this market and thinking that the Ravens will just find a way.
I have Ravens 12-1 Super Bowl. That's like my only real live one. And I don't feel good at all. They have probably 3 really tough games. Like if they win, it'll be fine, but it'll be, I'm thinking of I think that was 12-1 as well. I bet Virginia to win March Madness the year after they were, ousted in the first round.
The 116 loss.
The 116. I bet them the next year after the draw. Yeah. And then every game they played was like insane, like overtime with Tennessee and
the Auburn
I think Texas
game,
Tech,
Purdue.
like the Auburn game. Yes, all the games were crazy, and I just like I sweated so much that I was dead. I didn't even care anymore. I'd killed it and buried it 3 times. It didn't matter. So that's where I'm at with Baltimore. If they win, they win. I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But again, I'm talking to you, listener, watcher, viewer, whatever. If you have like some strong angle for this game, by all means, I love reading that stuff. I read a lot of other people's articles just to see where people's heads are at. And I think about it. I'm like, and often than not, I think this person's an idiot and this is a bad angle, but those are usually just shitty content writers. They're probably using AI anyway. I'd love to hear what you guys have. So
this is my lucky quarter. I keep it in my desk.
Yeah.
You want to flip a coin here, and you win the coin toss. You get to pick the side to make the argument for, and then I'll do the other. Is it a quarter? It's a quarter.
Yeah, well, then there's a bird on the back, so that's Ravens.
Well, the bird on the back is actually the state of South Dakota quarter. This is the state of South Dakota quarter.
Why is your lucky quarter the state of South Dakota?
It's a long story, but it has nothing to do with South Dakota.
All right, South Dakota is the Ravens.
Okay, for you. And no, I just want you to call it, and then if you win the coin toss, then you get to pick which side you get to make a case for.
Okay, heads.
Heads. It is heads. What side do you want to make the case for?
Heads never fails. Oh, who do I want? You know what? I'll take the Ravens. I will defend the Ravens because honestly, if you made me bet a side, gun to head, and pick one out,
it's the Ravens. Yeah, same.
I think the defensive steps forward they've taken, and everybody's talked about how they've rotated the safeties and they moved the cornerback, and the defensive secondary is different now, and it's made such a big difference. It's funny we have this conversation every year because Hamilton sucked ass when he came into the league, and then they moved him around, and then they figured it out, and like, oh no, actually he's an all-pro. Like, so kudos to the staff there for making the adjustments. And we say this about good defenses. It feels like good defenses rarely are great to start the year. They kind of work their way there. I know it was a huge concern, and maybe this was a big part of why they sucked shit as a coverage unit to start the season. They lost their defensive coordinator and two of the coaches directly below him to Miami and Tennessee. Where did the other guys go? Like they're, Weaver went to Miami to be a DC. One other defensive coach went somewhere else, and they ended up with, a guy quite a ways down the chain who they liked a lot, but he's young, having to take over at DC. And we use the words like pass funnel and, shit suckers and terrible people who can't cover anybody. And this pass defense has really kind of come around, and they still have the same level of run defense that we saw earlier in the year, where they don't even have to really stack it to be able to stop you. That said, it's Josh Allen. It's Josh Allen. I think Joe Brady's called a good year. It's a big ask for this defense. And then the same point too, Buffalo going back to this is another rematch. This is another game that we played. If you go back and look at what Buffalo had, I think Taron Johnson was out for that game. Milano was definitely out for that game. And God, who's the other one? Terrell Bernard, I believe. That defense was pretty beat up in the middle of the season as well. Whereas they're not great, but they're getting healthier as well. So I think I'd lean Ravens. If you made me pick a side, if I was in a contest or something, I would take them. But at the same time, I've seen Josh Allen do some shit, man. And
you're stepping on my handicap.
Oh, okay. No, that's I've seen Josh Allen do some shit. Handicap.
Those are at home, and Josh Allen is is a Terminator.
Well, and I'll leave the Zay Flowers part to you too, because that's a negative for my handicap.
Yeah, surely.
The other part is Derrick Henry and the pass rush, the pass run pass option that they employed last year, mainly even for the first half, was basically unstoppable. Where, I felt so bad for some of those guys that had to try to make the decision when there's an edge rusher that's coming off and he has to decide which player to take there in, a split tenth of a second, and then I guess, to be a quarterback who runs that properly, you have to be able to read their body and decide which way they're going in that same split second. And it feels like Lamar was better at that than the defenders who were coming in to defend those plays, because he would pull the ball when he needed to. He would give it when he needed to. And, he'd roll out and throw when it mattered. Whatever they were doing offensively, that game plan just fucked. So hard. Mm-hmm. It was a pain. And I know the scoreboard wasn't as impressive as the Bills win, but they kind of just coasted. that second half wasn't really a game. So yeah, I think the only knock would be Lamar in the playoffs, and sure shit didn't see that last week.
Okay. My case for the Bills, I can't add much to your breakdown. I agree. My case for the Bills goes something like Josh Allen is a Terminator. They're home. Those are meaningful factors.
Yeah, Orchard Park in January.
Orchard Park is real. This is a real home field advantage. Real deal. The first time these two teams played, you mentioned the Ravens, I think, had about 270 yards on the ground in that game. But I think with the healthier Buffalo Bills defense, the rushing defense, at least for the Bills, is a lot better than it was. And I look at, in particular, the decision to unveil that read option last week as a bit of a puzzler. I don't know that I love that that's out of the bag. It felt like that caught Pittsburgh completely by surprise. But now you have a full week of Buffalo Bill at least coming up with a plan A of what you're going to do. Now, maybe it still doesn't matter, right? But the fact that the element of surprise for unveiling that as what you want your playoff identity to be is a little bit of a puzzler and a little bit of a negative for me. Also, Todd Monken, in the biggest game of the year last year, peed down his leg. He called an absolutely horrific game, and there is a world where he overthinks it and comes out with an approach that's just he's intending to be a surprise, and it ends up just not being efficient or good because he doesn't have the weapons he needs to really be able to exploit this Bills defense the way that other teams that have exploited this defense had. The Rams did it with two elite wide receivers. Well, I say elite. Cup is washed, but they did it with an elite wide receiver.
Cup off one poor guy.
I know he played pretty good in that game. But the Lions did it. With a plethora of weapons, and the Ravens outside of Henry don't really have those weapons. I know that the tight ends are good, but the pass catching is questionable at times. The Ravens receivers are prone to drops at times. The Ravens are prone to fumbles at times. The Ravens are prone to penalties. They're a somewhat undisciplined group, particularly that secondary, and that could be one of the kind of equalizing factors for home field where Bills are getting a little bit more preferential treatment in terms of pass interference. Certainly Stevens looks like a walking pass interference penalty to me. And I think if you were to say which team wins this turnover battle in the blind, I would say it's probably Buffalo. Like the fumbles and the potential for for the key mistake coming from Lamar are non-trivial. The general kind of thing that I think is going to ultimately decide this game is going to be Buffalo's rushing offense versus Baltimore's rushing defense. The numbers would tell you Baltimore has an elite rush D. Roquan Smith obviously is the most important piece to that, and they are as good as advertised. But when they have gone up against kind of good rushing, well constructed rushing teams this year, they have been gotten on the ground. The key example obviously was the Eagles game where the Eagles beat them 24-19, thanks largely to 140 yards on the ground in that one. The general expectation here for me is that this offensive line for the Bills they could be the best. This could be the best offensive line in football. It's probably after the Lions, but they're very, very good, particularly at run blocking. Joe Brady is not an overthinker. He plays the hits. And I think there is a world where we come out of this one where it's like, man, the Bills had the best weapon in this game, and it was James Cook. Shit. That is very possible.
You want to hear something funny about what you just said?
What?
I have the Baltimore offensive line rated ahead of Buffalo.
Wow.
And it's not that they're better. Yeah, it's not that they're better players. They're not. It was actually an issue at the beginning of the season, but all the stats that matter, like arch slightly better in a few spots, and it makes their rating. Like I know it's wrong. Like, I have to adjust it every week, but I have Philly, Baltimore, Philly and Baltimore ahead of Buffalo, and then Detroit basically right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
just think that's funny every time.
It is funny, but the fact that they're at home, I think, is advantage Buffalo Bills offensive line. The fact that they're at home is advantage Bills rushing attack. And if that unit is successful and they can keep the Ravens in a negative game state or keep the Ravens offense in particular off the field, then this looks like a very good possible outcome here for the Bills. And in a world where this is a score and answer and team with the ball last wins, I have no issue with Josh Allen being my horse in that world. If they need to score a touchdown, the red zone, the rushing red zone, you want to talk about unstoppable? Sure. Between the 20s, the Ravens read option looks unstoppable. But inside the 20s, I don't think I would take any other quarterback by margin than Josh Allen to get that must get touchdown right now inside the 20 because of how impossibly good he is at avoiding the tackle and getting across, getting his big body across the line. So that's my case for the Bills.
Rebuttal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're watching a John Grisham movie. I mean, Baltimore is heavily penalized, 4th worst in the NFL over the season. But Buffalo's not that far behind. They're tied. they're 22nd, tied as being based. The most penalized team. Who do you think is the most undisciplined, poorly coached team in the league?
The Raiders, surely, right?
No.
Oh, they get the black and silver bias generally. Who is it?
You know what's crazy? The Raiders are 6th in the league for fewest penalties. I have no idea. When I was looking at the top, Arizona, Indianapolis, and the Jacksonville, Las Vegas are all in the top 5 or top 10.
Okay.
I guess, I would have guessed very poorly at a top 10. That's the Jets. Not quite. Not close. Jets and Tennessee are 31, 32 there.
Jets are going to jet.
Rebuttal. Point of order. Anyone who's in FFA would know. I used to know all the stuff about the, what do you call it, parliamentary procedure.
Oh, you did?
The Future Farmers of America would always use parliamentary procedure in our meetings. So we had to second things. I believe I was like the vice president of our chapter or something. I had an office. Not like an office for me to do work in, you know what I mean? I was a high schooler, but I held office in the FFA.
Okay. Well, I think we covered all of the bases, so I got to ask you a couple more questions.
Okay.
Well, first of all, where do you think this market closes? Does it close Ravens favored?
I'm very bad at guessing these because as you get closer to the Super Bowl, public money actually matters because it's en masse. And bookmakers have said that. Like, it isn't just, we don't respect these people. We can't move. We don't have to move the market. It's like, well, there's too many of them. we can't be this tilted on this number, or we can't be off market when the volume is coming in.
Especially because this is the last game. Yeah.
It's like, Circa's fine being off market sometimes if they're, the right people have bet the right side and they're confident in their number. But when the volume gets higher and higher, it's worse to be just hit with a deluge of board cleaners. You don't want that.
No.
So it feels like, I don't know. It feels like it closes a pick because there has to be some love for Josh Allen at home at some point.
Okay. Is there any edge to be had on this total?
It pains me, but it's probably an under.
You think? Why?
I can see it being cagey, where both these teams know, like, I'm fighting somebody who is definitely in my weight class here, and I don't love these two coaches as far as being aggressive in the correct spots. As much as I like these two coaches, it's kind of the antithesis of the Quinn Campbell matchup. It feels like they're there's going to be it's not going to be like Vrabel punting from the 40 shit, but it does feel like the feeling each other out, don't want to make the first big mistake in a game like this that is so close. There may be some caginess to it, and I think you get a slow first half. But if it is just a lot of running on both sides too, the clock can move pretty quickly. If we get a couple of stops here and there, if we get some field goals, these aren't the best special teams either. Baltimore,
two bad kickers.
We get a couple of missed kicks. Suddenly, you get live totals in the low 40s.
Under field goals maybe is a good look because they may not even have to attempt any, and they may not make any that they attempt. So that's kind of a fun one. I am a little bit blinded here because the similarities between this game and Bills Chiefs from 2021, I guess it was 2022, but it was the 2021 season. They're so similar because I'm high conviction that the Ravens are the best team in the NFL. I'm high conviction that if they win this game, they win the Super Bowl. And I felt that same way about the Bills then. And I was like, I didn't have high conviction they were going to win that game, but I was like, They win this game, it's over. Like, this is
they would have too. Like, that's the worst part of that game.
Oh, no question. No question.
Because I knew you knew it too.
No question.
That was the best that team's ever been.
Yeah. And that game was wide open, man. Like, because you had those two quarterbacks performing at the absolute peak of their powers, it didn't matter what the defenses were doing. Like, it was like, hey, we need a touchdown and we need it fast. Hey, we need a touchdown and we need it to be 1 minute and 42 seconds. Well, they did it in 1 minute and 31 seconds, right? Like that was like the margins in that game, and the offenses they got what they wanted when they wanted it, and there really wasn't much that either defense could do about it. And I can see that here, right? The conviction on the Ravens was, hey, maybe their pass defense is fixed, maybe they're good. I don't know that I feel that way after seeing what Russell Wilson did to them in the second half, and I know that shouldn't matter at all because he's fucking Russell Wilson and the game is over, and who cares? But honestly, the pass defense may still be very gettable here, and in which case the Bills might score explosively. I think over is the bet. If you said, hey, you must make a play in this game for some contest purposes, I would probably take over 51. If it comes down to 50.5, I'll probably bet the over for real. But right now I got nothing.
I'm set with you. Kind of the same thing you'd said about the other game with the high total was if this does start cagey,
then
I'm willing to bet on a bunch of fireworks to close the night out where maybe there's 3 drives in the last 5 minutes that end in touchdowns. Where you're able to get like a 40 at some point, a 42, and we're sitting there at close game. Maybe it is like 17-14 late, and then it's bang, bang, bang.
Okay.
Yeah, first half under, full game over type of look says the half that checks out.
I don't know that you're going to get your under first half. Sorry. I think
it's scary. It's scary.
These quarterbacks are just like think about the fight that people are having over the MVP. Like, Lamar Jackson just had the most efficient, absurd, highly rated quarterback season of all time. 41 touchdowns, 4 picks. Like, every time, and he's going up against the guy that people couldn't decide if he was better than. Like, this could just be absolute fucking shoot 'em out, go bananas. And I guess we didn't really talk about the weather, but some weather apps out there are calling for snow on Sunday night.
It's going to be pretty cold. It's about 50-50.
9 degrees in snow.
Yeah, 50-50 in the snow right now. We'll see when we get closer.
That'd be a real bummer.
If it were a snow game, I would throw away everything I just said and bet the over. Full ass snowver. I
kind of think that's the game. And honestly, I don't want to watch this game and see some, I want to see an over, which is maybe influencing my thinking a little bit, right? I want I don't want a Ravens coordination type of game. I don't want a Bills coordination type of game. I don't want a cagey nail biter type of game. I'd much rather see freaking uppercut, body blow, uppercut, right? Like we want to see some shots here.
I want to see a flurry to go with the flurries.
That'd be great. Let me ask you a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead. You had stuff.
Chalky NFC title game is our early kickoff.
Yeah. Chiefs versus whoever is the late game, right?
No, they flip flop.
Oh yeah, they do alternate it. That's stupid.
Last year the Chiefs game was the Chiefs was first. Chiefs Ravens was the early kickoff last year. So presumably Chiefs winner of Ravens Bills is the late.
That checks. That makes sense, but at the same time, it's dumb.
Haymaker. What number expected for Philly at the Linos?
All right. Detroit -2.
Okay.
I would book that.
Okay.
I feel like that's a good number. There's probably look ads on this. I could go find what they say. Somebody who has like FanDuel or whatever, go check that. I can pull it up, I guess. But
total of
2 sounds right. 2 sounds right to me.
Total
Set it at 2. Let the market decide if it wants to
go to
back
3.
the home team to get it done, or it feels like it would take a lot to get that to 3, and it doesn't go down the other way too far. And if it does, it doesn't matter.
I think I would open at 2.5 personally. I don't want to take a bunch of Lions money to learn that the Lions are the right side. I'd rather take a little Lions money to learn the Lions are the right side. And I actually don't have an opinion on who's the right side there, because that's strength on strength in a lot of ways, which is really fun matchup to handicap. I don't have a strong read there. Chiefs hosting the blanks. Let's just say the Ravens. Chiefs hosting the Ravens.
Isn't it the same number either way? It's close.
I think so. Because whoever wins Ravens Bills gets an upgrade by the market. They officially get power rating number 1 status.
FanDuel has 2.5.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. I'm willing to take.
I wouldn't lay -120, or I wouldn't ask for -120 for Lions money.
On early lines like that, if I'm doing hypotheticals a week out, I'm making everybody 120 both ways. Fuck you guys. Kansas City -1.
Oh no!
It's in
no. So
what are you pricing it?
I'd be at I would open Ravens -2.5, Bills -2. Definitely.
I have a higher Kansas.
I think
City
the margin between the Bills and the Ravens.
I make it a pick.
Is non-trivial.
I make it a pick, but I think you're going to take Chiefs money. Right now, it is currently listed as Chiefs -1.5 versus Bills or Ravens.
You want free money? Take the Bills Ravens and +1.5. You can hedge out of it. Hope for 1 point now.
Yeah, I make the Chiefs. My numbers here, and using the Chiefs home field, it would be Baltimore's 2nd straight road game. Whatever. I'd make Chiefs a 0.25 points favorite. So just barely they're a worse team, but they're getting a bump for home field. They're getting a bump for rest.
So right now for me, the Ravens are an 8+, a little better than 8.0. And the Bills are a 7+. And the Bills would get upgraded to an 8 for me if they beat the Ravens. Even if it's not a convincing one, just the other thing too. I would have to upgrade them.
There's a chance that Kansas City gets an upgrade after this game if they were playing a little coy with their game planning for the
year. Even
if
it's 31-7, I'm not touching my Kansas City.
I don't know.
No way.
What if they? I think the only reason to really upgrade them would be like the secondary does look a lot different with Watson in. They shut them fucking down. Like this defense looked elite this week now that they've had some time to put it all together. That matters a lot in either matchup, I think, because you know what you're getting with Mahomes and Andy and everybody. I think if the defense looked really good, they could get a little bump. It's not big because it's defense. It still doesn't matter so much.
Okay.
At the same time, like what if the offensive game plan is just nails too? This is the best defense left in the playoffs, essentially. Like I have the Houston Texans better than the Eagles. Yeah, it's and this is the point. I mean, that's the same point Drew just made. It's tough because they're 8-point favorites. Like if they beat the tar out of them, what are you gonna do? I think it has to be something along the lines of like, holy shit, that defense was just lights out, and it is. They pitch a shutout or something.
Okay. I think
either way, I think you open.
I think the Chiefs close home dogs personally.
The difference between like pick 'em and one is so negligible. You open a pick 'em and see which way. Like, is there enough people that want to back Mahomes? Like, oh my god, I can get Mahomes at home at a pick 'em. Like, it feels like enough people are taking that anyway, and then enough people will be like, well, Baltimore's a better team, which they are, but I don't know they're big enough to be 2.5-point favorites. I think that one probably closes at worst like Baltimore -1.5. And it feels like there would be less of a desire to back the Bills in Arrowhead than there would be Baltimore for some reason. I can't exactly explain why, but that's how my head feels.
Okay.
And then it's Kansas City teasers. If you
I'm
give
just
me one and a half.
curious. I'm just curious. Hypothetically, would you price this year's Ravens as better than last year's Ravens?
No, but it's close.
What?
I think it's fair. I'll have to look. I'll have to go look.
I think their offense is materially better, and offense gets a much higher balance than defense for me.
As a whole, not with Flowers out. Not right now. Like at this very moment with Flowers out, I can't do it.
How about
it's very close. I had that Ravens team ranked about as high as I ranked teams. They were so good going into the playoffs.
They were, yeah.
I'm guessing I have those numbers. Those numbers are very close.
You had the Chiefs rated higher than last year's Chiefs.
Probably about the same.
Okay. Henry slightly better than Gus Bus. That's a very, very fair point by Donnie.
He is, but
yeah,
Gus and Dobbins were doing it as a squad, man. 2023 ratings. Let's see if I can find my numbers. A different day. We'll dig that up sometime. That's interesting though. Yeah, like I said, if you have a handicap in this game, I'd love to hear it. Tweet it at us, leave it in the comments.
You know what would be a fun teaser?
Send it to me, email me.
You know what would be a fun teaser?
What? Chiefs and then Chiefs Super Bowl?
Chiefs. No, Chiefs this week, Chiefs next week.
Yeah, Chiefs
8.5 to 2.5, 8.5. Oh, 3-way. You want to do a 3-legger?
Oh, we got Chiefs. I'm already
Chiefs. Chiefs open and then put them in as 1.5 dogs next week. Take it past 7.
I got you.
Yeah,
I like that.
If only Tony.
All right, P5 down. We haven't done an RP5 games all day.
God damn it.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We'll have I'll probably do another quick segment with Dean from Profit X. We'll talk to him a little bit. They've got some exciting stuff around the corner.
Awesome.
With I think they're gonna jack up some stuff for the Super Bowl, basically. Like if you want to be betting Super Bowl props, you know what the best place to do it is? An exchange who has a lot lower overhead over round Fig. Because
very exciting.
I have started to look at that. They have first touchdown scorers now. Prices are slightly better than if you're going to go looking for them at a place that only books it one way.
Awesome. Love it. All right, man. Let's call it a pod. Great job as always. Did you have any final closing thoughts or words of wisdom to the people listening at home?
No, I'm just a secret pod play.
Oh,
secret prop play.
You know what it is for me.
Go ahead. You have it. Tell yours.
Ravens team total over.
Okay. I'll ride with it. I want that game to be good, and I won't be betting. I'll go bet that. I'll bet that with you.
That one's getting there.
I looked at Houston team total under. It's like 17.5 minus 160 or something. Like, no. I don't know if I can soak that. Their first half team total was 7.5 minus 140 to the under.
Oh, yikes.
I was tempted to go the other way with that.
Yikes.
By accident.
You can get 24.5 on the Ravens right now at minus 125 or 26 at minus 120. I guess I'd rather have 24.5 minus 125.
Yeah.
Lamar's getting to 30. Let's go, buddy.
Over. All right. We'll see you guys. I'm going to hit the music. We'll check you halftime. We'll do the night games again, unless you're not around. I'll be around.
I'm doing
a busy weekend.
I'm dope for the people at home who especially love the pizza streams. I'm doing Saturday night, second quarter, leading into the deep.
Oh yeah, I had to give someone your damn number because they're like, I keep DMing him on Twitter, he doesn't answer.
And one other promise from yours truly, I will be in rare form for both of the nightcap games. I can promise you that. Saturday. It is not a dry January around my household. It is a dry martini January. I will be quite loaded on the pizza stream as well as the halftime show for Ravens Bills. And if the Ravens end up losing that game in dramatic fashion like the Bills lost to the Chiefs, we'll go live just to
I'll just cancel it. Like, I'm not feeling good.
All right. I should bet overtime yes in that game just to cover my emotions if that actually happens.